So, like, I sent you that song that starts the podcast because I love it. And again, I guess we could talk about that too. But it's like a Sufi dance.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I keep telling you what you're gonna. I have to repeat it.
I'm just gonna have to start recording you now.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking of that instead of this.
But everybody wants to do the same thing when they send me the playlist, like talk about everything they want to do.
Yeah.
All right.
There is definitely like a confessional element to it because it's something you don't often talk about, and you know it grows organically.
We're gonna play the music for a little bit, so.
It's not gonna work.
Welcome to Speak Sex. I'm Eurydice. I am an artist and writer from the island of Lesbos. I have written books with Scribner, Virago Press about female sexuality. I used to write the Sex Files column, and my multimedia art practice is also on the theme of women's bodies and their objectification, their subjectivity, the duality that we've inherited from our parents and culture and patriarchy that separates the body from the mind, from logos, from the things that we value. And my effort to bring them back together and unite them and find the place where the body doesn't come with shame is what has created this podcast. So thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me as your Jolt Radio sex whisperer.
That's a great tagline.
Yeah. Today's guest is Alex Nunes. She's a fellow artist, woman, DJ, podcaster, photographer, and was my next door studio neighbor for some years at Fountainhead. So I'm excited to have you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Always happy to keep it in the Jolt family.
Yeah. So Alex, I want to hear from you a little bit about your journey as both as a woman and as an artist. You know, where does your body, your gender, your femme power or lack come into your work and your thinking and your life choices? And where are you at right now?
Wildly loaded question.
Yes.
Like attack one angle of it at a time.
Loaded.
Immediately when you were speaking, I thought of mixed media collage work that I do of actually incorporating the female body throughout advertising, vintage advertisements, just exploring the male gaze and how that affected. I started studying graphic design and communications and advertising for my undergrad. And so I started exploring how the media looks at the body, how we look at the media, and how we're so like in this cycle. So I kind of like chop and mix what I've been seeing and add my element of glitter, pom-poms, coffee,
Yes.
tequila, whatever.
Yes, you do.
What have you. And then as far as, I guess, like how do I even tackle the other element of that? Being a female artist, painter, I have a kind of gender neutral name. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic on how people are receptive to the work if they don't know me, or how they approach like, oh, this is XYZ's work, blah, blah, blah. So I'm, in that sense, it's been interesting to see how people react to that. I think it's an interesting dynamic being a female artist, especially like putting the vulnerability of your work. I'm not physically represented in my work. There's no photos of me, but you're physically putting yourself out there with like studio visits or like having people come by. It's so personal. It's kind of wild it's like a therapy session. So it's like you're not only physically vulnerable, but you know, actively vulnerable within the community and exploring the vulnerability of the female body within the work. So.
Yeah, it's a kind of like creative striptease that you do when you open up your studio and then people walk in.
I always compare it to kind of like the zoo, like you pass by cages and we're supposed to be like, this is our little natural fake little environment.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's always just such a weird dynamic of a thing. I mean, I've been doing this for so many years and I never get used to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the art center on Lincoln Road for 7 years.
That's a little more difficult because it's transparent walls.
Right.
That's,
Everybody, that was the deal. You got a great break in rent, but it was all glass. And people walked through at all times. And I would get guys, I had a studio that was right across from a staircase, and there would be like guys above on the balcony, guys sitting on the steps, and you start wondering, speaking of the male gaze, how much of this is about the work? How much of it is about me? And, I became aware of what I'm wearing. Am I wearing underwear? Because, at the time I wasn't. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start wearing panties. And I'm going to, dress more like gender...
See, I wear
free,
the Dickies jumpsuit,
right? Jumpsuit.
But I was making fun of. I was just talking with another female artist about. There's this Instagram series on Netflix on Insta Famous, and they were talking about. I think they're called the Kaplan twins, and they're like twin painters that dress like sexy overalls and they're sisters. So the sexy dynamic really grosses me out because I have a sister and I wouldn't pose or do
Are they
half
twin
for that.
sisters?
Yes.
Wow.
So it's super sexy painters.
Super sexy.
And I'm
porn.
I was joking with this other
porn.
artist. I'm like, what the hell am I wearing? Because I'm wearing, my time lapses aren't as interesting. But it's just
Do you have a twin sister?
No, I have a younger sister that I'm always with, but I just would never pose with her in a sexual manner. I just find that really a weird kind of fantasy of sisters. I just find that, I don't know, that's not...
Well, yeah, it's doubly objectifying, and, you take that relationship that's so intimate, it's way beyond words, and you turn it into, a spectacle for to turn on the guys, and in exchange you get feedback?
Yeah, and so that's why it's a very
followers?
strange dynamic for your studio process and filming yourself, because I do time lapses in the video, but you're saying, I'm dressing really
right. That's what I learned. Yeah,
and I've learned
which
that
I don't do naturally. I like the body to be as free, and naked and visible and acceptable. But yeah, exactly. Because then you start wondering, will that person ever buy a piece of work, or are they just hanging out there?
I think it's as long as I've been practicing, I'm always in very industrial areas and usually working really late at night. So it doesn't do me any good to show anything off. And I mean, unless you're just doing it for your little selfie stick and then you paint a fake painting, but
wow,
I don't know. That kind of...
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. I didn't know it either. I mean, the work, that's a whole different concept, but I mean, it's just it was kind of funny. And then I got into this K-hole of looking at other kind of process-based Instagram of artists in studio, and they're blow-dried hair, there's no paint on the clothes. I'm like, this is not accurate. I don't... Well, maybe I'm not I should have the Beyonce fan when I'm doing my time-lapse paintings. But yeah, my Instagram doesn't look anything like that, unfortunately. But I'm in the lower numbers. That's probably why.
Yeah. Yeah, well, your Instagram is about the work, not the likes. Oh no, I didn't get enough approval.
So yeah, I've been in Miami. I met you, my first Miami studio, fresh out of New York, from 9 years in New York, and this Fountainhead, I came in 2016. Fell in love with your work.
Likewise.
We were across the hall from each other.
Yeah.
And then we were in Catherine Maxell's women's show together. Mainly do...
I'm woman, hear me roar.
I'm woman, hear me roar.
I like that.
Yeah, and I fell in love with your embroidery work. I'm just such a hyper fan. But that work... that show specifically, I do a lot of embellished 1970s, 1980s vinyl album covers, mainly with women looking at the camera in different suggestive poses, some with clothing, some not, and it's kind of just activating these older images, but they're completely fresh.
From a feminist
and
place,
and since these images are recycled and Fashion Option copies it, people don't know how how current like the history of current fashion is just so recycled. But
yeah, it's all recycled.
Yeah,
but we forget and we start over. It's really all being done. So and it behooves us to take a few years and study first.
Well, that's what makes it so interesting as an image maker. That idea that it's always been done, because I'm sure people go in your studio and they're like, "Have you heard of XYZ? This reminds me of that." Mm-hmm. So like even with that in the back of your head, like there is chance to make new and exciting things, but be conscious of the source that
Right. Yeah.
That's like a.
Well, I mean, I always say, I claim it that I saw an exhibit by Gadamer and I was like, no way, and it actually, I lost a lot of buyers and collectors and galleries when I switched to the stitch, because I used to paint or do graphite charcoal big drawings. So, but I had grown up with that. I did it like on the porch with my mom and my grandma and my aunts, and I was a little girl. So the emotional power, on me of that work, and what it meant politically, as a woman. To like take the dowry, that was in the trunk that's supposed to come with me on my wedding to the husband's household, and put it out. It's such an exhibitionist, vulnerable, intense place to be. That it just, it changed everything. It was like a high for me. Yeah, and then also the stitch is very meditative. Like stitch your way through time. So that was like a totally different experience of practicing art. So yeah, and I've stuck with it because like you, I have an illustrative aspect to the work. Mm-hmm. So it just the stitch makes it just a touch more 3D.
Yeah.
Right?
I use a lot of with my mixed media paper works, like a lot of collage of magazines and things like that, and so it's a nice hand. I do that with I would compare it to my chalk pastel stuff that's super visceral and really quick, and it's just like a more tactile experience, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it allows you to play with all these issues, of how we're taught to see, and the definitions were given as a given. When we become part of the world early on.
So where were we?
So sad.
Where was I in that 4-part question? I don't know.
Well, you haven't done anything personal at all.
Oh no, we're just doing the CV right now.
Yeah.
But I am originally from Miami. My father's Cuban, my mom's American. Born, raised, and then left out of high school, and then now I'm here and practicing artist over in Little Haiti and Deering. So that's the CV. We can jump on personal. I don't know how personal you want to get.
I want to get as personal as you're willing.
I'm ready for it. I was a little nervous because I was like, I agreed to the show, and then I'm like, hold on, what is she gonna ask? I need demos.
No. Yeah, that would be good for the video part.
Yeah.
Right.
More likes.
So, well, let's start with Miami, which is kind of like an interesting choice for a woman artist to come back to, because I feel like it's a very male town, right? And a very sexualized from the point of view of the male town.
I felt that way about New York too.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're a male painter, I felt it was like the scene.
Totally.
Yeah. But Miami is like, I don't know, next level. The weather is conducive to the lack of clothing.
Yeah.
And then
making out.
Yeah, making out. It's like destination vacation spring breaker. It's kind of like the side piece. It's not like your serious girl. It's the girl on the side, because the snowbirds come here for December to February or what have you. And I don't know. It's an interesting time to be here, because I haven't been here since I want to say 2006, something like that. Really been here, and the arts community is completely blown up, and I think there's a frustration with the local artists. And I heard you guys just speaking about this, you're coming in town, we're catering to the people that are out of town, they shit all over the town and then they leave. Someone was comparing it to seagulls, and I feel like there is a really great community that is resulting off of that kind of frustration, like people are banding together to try to make this a more annual thing, and
continues.
Continue.
Exactly.
And like I see new collectives forming, and
right, exactly.
The strength of the other communities, like Fountainhead Bakehouse, Art Center, like programs like that can only grow and help the city. And I think, I mean, it's really different from New York in the sense that the gallery, I mean, it's just like there's no like cluster. You're driving everywhere and you go to one thing, so it's like really hard, especially with the gentrification of like what communities can we afford to be in, what communities are we being pushed to. So like between the displacement, the real estate boom, all of that, it's really difficult. I find it's really difficult to centralize.
Yeah, I agree.
Whole thing.
I
so,
agree.
And I think that's like
very
really
difficult.
The hardest part of the community is actually physically getting together, and that's what I've noticed. Like the biggest struggle I've been having with here, like physically just driving. I relied like on mass transit and bicycling around for. And now I'm like screaming on the expressway. So So
well, I've made a conscious decision to stay on the beach, and
good for you.
You know, Fountainhead was the only exception, and I didn't like it. I mean, I loved it being in the tribe, in the community, but I just, felt, because I came as a kind of snowbird, I bought a place. Actually, I like sold the book, took the advance, bought a place at the Decoplage because I had to get away from the winter in New York. And then when I became pregnant, I just didn't want to raise my daughter in the West Village year round. So I stayed longer and longer. But I love the energy of Miami Beach and South Beach, and the people, and kind of like transient sense of coming and going. All of that keeps me from being bored or feeling static. But yeah, once the art center sold, all of those artists became homeless. And there was a brief period where we were given a lot of free studios, to promote areas. So like I would have free studios in the design district for a number of years, and I would just like open it every second Saturday or whenever the art night was. Or I had a schoolhouse before it was demolished. It was like abandoned, and I got to work. I had the whole schoolhouse to myself. So and in Wynwood, I had spaces for free for a while before the full development, but all of that has dried out. So we just gotta find each other. We gotta like do it, and I think that's good. It's more organic. Like we don't need an organized developer or promoter, or even a non-prof that still has a board in charge. We can just do it on our own.
No, really, it's just a cluster of artists.
Yeah.
I use those examples mainly as that they are collective communities that you can easily like go and see like a group of artists.
Right.
But outside of that, there's other collectives that you can go to and visit.
Right.
And I think where Angel is now, the 777 building, is a great alternative space.
Right.
But this is all with real estate developers, and that has been a huge issue. As long as I've been outside of grad school, I've had to pay for studios, and have been like pushed out of pretty much like 2 places in Brooklyn, and there's a threat of leaving here. I mean, it's a constant conversation. And like short of buying something, I'm amazed to hear that they were giving you free space. That's really awesome. But it is that sense of impermanence that's really difficult to like for you to make work. It's like, how long am I going to be here?
Yeah, true. Again, I mean, it's a choice. It's a choice we make. I kind of like taking agency back. So as much as it was, super cozy to have like a reduced rent and be in the middle of Lincoln Road and have people, I raised my kid there. But I do like having, like having you here now. That's, our conversation. This is our own community, and the listeners are part of it, and there is no one else. That's just us, comes because we want to be here, and we want to talk to each other, and we want people to hear it. And there's something really beautiful, I think, authentic and organic. Nobody's making any money. Nobody's like, there's nothing. We're not trying to get anybody to like buy our work or like our photos or whatever. It's just real. We want people to hear and be part of it, and and make like a bigger conversation. And I think you do that with your podcast, the Sunday Painter, which is inspiring for me as a more recent podcaster, because it comes from the same, authentic place. It's very, it's not like high tech media. I think it's old media, even though
it's like a mixtape. Yeah, it's
a
pretty
mixtape.
old, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's just it feels so much more real. Like you can, it's like what we're doing. It's live. It's raw. We can go wherever we want it to go, right? And this is like our offering of truth. At the moment, where so much is like packaged and custom edited and right, and presented through all kinds of filters that make it very hard to know truth. Starting like from reality TV to basically all of Instagram and Facebook.
Little sound bites of conversations.
Yeah.
Maybe we're the last generation that had like actual phone conversations. That's not a text-based kind of situation. Right. But I've totally like romanticized like the kind of like a community that you can form doing these one-on-one things, because like you run into people at like openings or whatever, and you're not necessarily having a full conversation, or a bar, other things come up, it's busy, but like I mean, I'm a total fan of, obviously, and I'm going like on time. Yeah, I'm going on like 3 years of doing the show, and
it's great.
I'm constantly learning. I've never bored, never. It's just completely like an amazing way to grab music, like what you've just sent me. So basically the show is talking to people and splicing in music that they're listening to in the studio, but mainly it's just like talking to living contemporary artists. Like a conversation of like what we're doing.
Miami creatives.
Yeah, and that demystifying that whole, there's a painting on the wall, what was that person's story, what's their bio, like these people are alive, support a living artist. This is a living artist that you should know about. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I find it at this moment revolutionary to do all kinds of things without being paid. Because so much, even like that whole concept of like being the influencer. I mean, how fake.
Yeah, but you're still getting paid to hawk that tea.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all so fake, and then we're in a moment where America has lost its understanding of truth because of, the president and the notion of fake news, which has become completely accepted, and the prevalence of the internet has kind of made that much more powerful, because it's one thing to say fake news, but everybody like respects whatever the New York Times, but it's another thing to say fake news, and you have Facebook and you have Twitter and you have countless sources of opposite versions of the news, so it becomes post reality, basically.
Even in real time, when you see like the fact checkers going across, be like, this is a lie right now, and you're just like, how is this? But it doesn't really matter to some people what truth is, and that's kind of like where we are right now.
We've lost it because we've lost the assumption of trust.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So I do find it that I mean, as a woman, I used to think it's revolutionary that I always, charged for my writing, and I had all these like rules because women didn't get paid. But now I think it's actually even more empowering to do things just purely out of the heart, because so little of it is done this way, So like I have like a book club at the Betsy, and I have a writers group there, and I have a coven. I have all kinds of things. We're bringing each other together because we wanna be together in truth, right, in consciousness. Which is what we're doing here right now.
Well, I think you're maximizing your time. Like you're spending time with the people that you want to springboard ideas off of. You care about them creatively, because I think you're so exhausted with like these multi-channels that are like throwing this information at you. People you don't want to be with, like places you don't want to go, people you don't want to support, that you want to like schedule like, all right, these 2 hours I'm going to be with really important people that are going to like
respect. That's all. Yeah.
Basically. And I think that's why it's like so important for, I mean, even bouncing ideas off of other women artists, and I do include a lot of women, like I would say it's a majority of my programming, and I just think like the perspectives are always different, and it's cool to like meeting you in some, I would have never met you had you not been in Fountainhead, so I think there's definitely like paths crossed for a reason.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like blessed to have like encounters, because like being uprooted and then trying to get thrown back in the community is something really difficult, especially with artists, because it's not like
we solitary practice.
Yeah, and you like see through bullshit, so it's not like you're gonna want to just jump into, I don't know. I feel like the social circle is a little bit more difficult to
the superficial trappings,
because you're on multiple aspects. Like you're looking through, I don't know, through various lenses. It's kind of your job to be like
to look deeper.
So it's you can't mess around with that. And I kind of like waded in, and like I don't know. It wasn't easy. Like a majority of my artist friends were in New York, so I was really scared about coming down here. And it like I was just so impressed, because like I really had, you know, no idea other than my snowbird timing coming back down here, like what was going on, and whether that was like sustainable for my practice, and you know how it is being a lady.
I don't know that I know that. I think that may be one of those things I really have no clue about.
Yeah, I might be a little fuzzy about that.
Right. There aren't many, but I think that's one. Oh my God. I remember I was a kid, and our next door neighbor taught me how to be a lady. I was like maybe 6. And my mom would send me next door, and she would make me have like 20 books on my head.
Oh God.
And walk tippy-toe. But the whole time I was like sneaking and reading the book while I'm doing this, like so out of body. Like none of these lessons took.
Oh God, I did cotillion in Miami.
Oh yeah, cotillion. Yes,
I really
the ballroom dancing.
Never used any of those
at the surf
skills.
club.
No, it was in the Coral Gables Country Club, and we had to wear white gloves and leather bottom shoes, and we like did the foxtrot, the Lindy ballroom dancing, which is like really essential for a 13-year-old. Yeah. I don't think I've ever used any of those skills, and I have like the worst table etiquette, so I don't know. Did not.
Good for you.
Yeah. Being a lady is really difficult, especially since I feel like I'm doing this whole like the duality of like me in the jumpsuit versus me going to an opening. So like somebody was joking yesterday, because I was just covered in like dust and wearing my mechanic jumpsuit, and then like an hour later I'm in like red lipstick and a dress. I'm like, it'd be like you have to be completely like on both spectrums to kind of. I mean, I could just show up in my jumpsuit. I don't really think anybody cares anymore. But it's kind of like part of the whole machine of the, you know, going.
Yeah, well, you wear the, you in Rome you do like the Romans, you just wear the appropriate costume so that it's not about you. That's my feeling, like I dress because I don't want to bring attention to myself as, pretending to be the outsider. Like, that's within you, but it's I think it's nice to kind of respect the look and, of the place where you enter.
Yeah, I would have stood out.
Yeah, you would have totally stood out.
Yeah.
And that would have been the point. So do you date? What do you do for love?
I'm single. I'm dating, and I'm not really enjoying that in Miami. I feel like it's really difficult. I've tried apps. I've deleted apps.
Oh, you have tried apps?
Yeah,
good. So what do you think about? I mean, good in the sense of tell me about it.
I think they're a nightmare. I play them more like a video game. But I really never. I don't know. I'm on them, but I don't really. I think I use them more like if I'm really interested in somebody. You'll see who the connecting people are.
Right,
and
you
then
can go on Facebook and look them up. Or...
Well, no, not like you'll see who a mutual friend is, and then you'll ask the mutual friend. Okay. I feel like that's a better gauge.
Okay.
But for most part, no, I haven't been dating. Like I've just been holding myself up in the studio. That's been like my days and nights have been there, not specifically for an end game of any kind, but just like I've been really focused the last couple months. The dating scene is difficult in Miami. I feel like I don't know. I guess New York, it's easier to like stumble downstairs and like run into people. Miami, you really have to go out of your way. The driving, and I live like pretty far south, so it's I don't know. The bar scene, I usually gravitate towards this area, and it's just I don't know. I'm not really into it.
Interesting.
Yeah. it's like a fresh.
But you're not asexual at the moment. You're
No.
just kind of.
I'm just. I don't know, floating
lingering.
around. Yeah, lingering. Not asexual. No, I still. Yeah, I've been single for a while. I've dated, but like nobody serious, and like in a very long while.
No one has caught your eye or kept it.
No.
Mm.
I wish I could
Now I
provide
have to
you
matchmake.
Yeah, go for it. We'll do some moon conjuring.
Yeah.
No, I wish I could give you a better story or a better excuse. Or,
No, that's a good story. I like that story because it's real, and it goes against like the grain of what's expected in Miami, where we're like, jumping each other all the time. But also I think that it's a challenge for, women who are aware, who are woke, who are feminist, however you want to call it. It is a challenge to date successfully and still be you, instead of like become someone else. Like you would date successfully if you could be absent.
And
I don't want to say
more for yourself to whoever.
but,
yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like
play that part.
When I was younger, I feel like I was more, I guess, patient with my time. Now I kind of I'm just like, if I'm not feeling it, I'm not gonna stick around.
Right.
So I feel like you put up with a lot less.
True. I mean, that is true. That one of the many problems of the dating apps is that it's very time consuming because you need to actually make the time and show up and get to know this new person before you even have a sense of whether
I don't want
or
to
not.
do that. I don't want to do any of that. I hate the whole first date conversation.
Right, and it's all self-advertising. So if you stay with it long enough, you'll find out actually maybe it was wishful thinking at best, or else just like lying. But it just, because people try to kind of paint the best picture of themselves they can in their way, and most of us are not very good at translating ourselves to a complete stranger. Right, so we make an assumption about what this person understands and what language is shared that often may be wrong. We may be talking a completely foreign language.
I find it really interesting the amount of fish pictures on apps. Like, for some reason in Miami, every man wants you to know that they can hold up a big fish next to them, and that's like one of the top 3 photos that I always see. In New York, I guess it was like the petting the drug tiger. Everybody who went and like paid to do that. But
it's funny.
I don't know what it is about that. I don't think.
Well, see again, they're not translating to the woman. They're talking to other men.
Can provide.
It's like, dude, I'm a dude. John, do you have fish pictures?
No, never have.
Send a fish pic.
You don't catch the fish.
Nice marlin or tuna.
Maybe like from the point of view of a heterodominant male. Like that's hot.
That's interesting because I never thought of it like catering. I guess it would be impressive to other men, but I really don't give a shit
not
if
to
you're
the
holding
women.
up a fish.
Right. Like what's the girl doing while you're sitting there fishing, waiting for a fish to bite?
It's a little less repulsive than the gym kind of like lower angle torso kind of no, can't do it that. But the fish pics are really next level.
Well, also again, like our relationship with the male body as an object of desire, and lust is very edited. It's like the David, Michelangelo, which is puberty, and but like extreme masculinity enters maybe more fluently into gay space because they're more comfortable with that than with women, because there's like a fine line between rapist physique, painful physique, like a body that would hurt you in bed, period, and attractive, male physique. But I think that guys just don't empathize enough to see how we might perceive, how like the women out there swiping or whatever would
throw a
see
puppy
those
in
pictures.
there.
Yeah,
I'll swipe towards a puppy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I mainly include female, and I think you do as well. The female body in my work. I rarely use the man, and I think that's even. I mean, within our culture, a majority of the magazines are showing the female body, and now there's a shift towards like androgyny, so a little bit less of these like severe, chiseled forms that were like big guy, like Marky Mark dude in the 90s. So it's like you know, kind of going that way. I don't know how I got off on the fish pick tangent, but I think catering
like
like
modes of masculinity and
and I think like as an artist, like you kind of have to like hold down, like you can't, and I think it like builds up layers, like you don't really care what like catering to your audience, like you're doing your point of view. Like I'm not gonna, because if all of your work looked like every person that walked up to it what they wanted to see, it wouldn't be your work. So I feel like the same thing translates to dating. Like I'm not gonna bend or mold or change or shift, and that's probably why I'm still looking. But I mean, like
what are you supposed to talk about at that first date besides
it's like your soundbite,
right, bragging,
and,
devastating.
And then like show me pictures, and then let's talk about your work, and then I feel really like a disconnect with.
It's like PR. Only you're supposed to be mating,
yeah,
but you're not really mating. You're doing PR of yourself with like each other,
yeah,
in an effort to find, you know, reason to like
seal the deal,
get naked, yeah. Or go out, yeah, I guess,
yeah.
And do the guys really want to get physical?
I mean, I've done a couple app dates, and I mean,
that's all?
Just a couple. Like the other ones that I've met up through were like through friends of friends.
Okay.
But I think I met like maybe 2 guys off of, and both of them were total nightmare dates. Like one of them was like looking at his phone and answered a call and was like, "Yeah, I'm bored. What are you up to?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'm leaving." Yeah. So I kind of stay away from that.
Yeah,
but
that's like disrespect for the human.
I left.
The human condition.
Yeah.
So fucking sad.
And then they texted me, "I'm sorry, do you hate me?" Da, da, da. And
I just wow.
Blocked. I'm like,
No, I still love you.
Yeah. Come back.
I don't hate you.
The one that got away.
I loved you all along. Yeah. Yeah.
Tip to the men out there: don't answer your phone during the first 15 minutes of meeting somebody. It's just like, hold it in. I don't care what the call is. Oh, my favorite part is that it was an ex of his that he said he was in love with, and we go meet up with her and her new boyfriend. And I'm like, what kind of date is this? Like, I don't. Yeah.
People can be so unconscious.
I think it was just like he needed like a warm body to go to something else with, and it just wasn't going to be that person.
Yeah. Well, if we have any advice to all of you guys and girls out there, it's like, take a moment and be conscious.
Put your phone away.
Yeah, put your phone away. Be like in the moment.
Even friends of mine.
Be aware of
I've
like
scolded
where
friends.
you are.
I'm like, if we're having lunch, take it, put it away, put it away. Yeah, I just think there's nothing like that's a huge pet peeve of mine. I don't know how important your job is on social media or whatever you're doing. Like, I mean, you can take the time to learn 10 minutes about somebody and then decide that they suck. And then
yeah, it's just good practice, even like to not be tempted by distraction. You know, it's good for your work. It's good for meditatively. It's good for, you know, like finding your own self is to be able to, for whatever reason, put your phone, you know, away and just like commune with the moment. And I think it gives people a voice that's their own, so they can speak up, you know, for themselves without kind of like repeating stuff they hear or talking about something that they see, you know, always kind of referring away from the self, but instead take a moment to like speak truth.
I think it's a good policy. Like, you go to like museums or certain restaurants that don't let you use it. I'm like, thank God. I don't have to like back into somebody doing a selfie or something. I don't know, especially with engaging with work, you just notice people, whether they come in your studio or openings, like, are they looking at the work first, or they just like snap? So it's
I find that very interesting, actually, because I remember, you know, once cell phones became prevalent, until cell phones became much more prevalent as cameras, the early years at the art center, people would come in and there would be no photographing. And actually people, if they had a camera, they would be like, is photography allowed, you know? And I would be one of the few artists who would say yes, because like most would say no, as if people are going to photograph and then copy every single thing you do and become millionaires of like your idea that doesn't pay the rent. No. But you know, they took much longer to engage. To talk about each piece, to ask questions, you know, about every piece, you know,
with or without
to stay before the phone, to stay, you know, there was like a zen, artsy zen energy that happened because we all were like wanted to be there. You know, we were all kind of like wired by this energy, and the phone mediates that, so it mitigates the experience because people have this sense that they can see more because they'll take photos and then theoretically they'll go home,
that never
right?
happens.
But you take so many that you never take the time to actually go back and think about each photo. Come on. No. Eventually, like some years later, you delete them all because you need space in your memory or something. And that's the end. So you've denied yourself the real-time experience for the sake of like future experience or for the sake of like keeping the memory, holding on to the, you know, to like that moment, but you haven't experienced the moment for the sake of holding on to the moment, which eventually you were not going to hold on anyway. Because there are just too many fucking moments to hold on to. Because like there is no discrimination. You want to hold on to every single moment of everything you ever do.
Yeah, and if you're going through something like an open studios, and it might be really difficult to.
They take so many photos, and they walk in, take the photos, and go next to studio.
I'm into like if I want to remember an artist's name later, I'll take a picture of the wall text and then the picture of the work and go back. But I mean, like I've seen people like go around and take like the whole show,
everything,
just a picture of everything in the show, like,
everything. But they do not stop. That's the thing. You can take the pictures, absolutely.
But
like stop, take a moment, enjoy it. Oh, hi Pepe. Our resident dog, John's dog. I think he wants to go out.
No, he's good.
He's just showing off. He wanted a soundbite.
Yeah,
yeah.
We need a soundbite. Anyway, so that is something, you know, tellingly, we don't do that during sex. Well, most of us. You know, we do it when we want sex, you know, like we'll take pictures of ourselves naked and send them to other people, trying to like entice extreme passion that's like undeniable and will transport the receiver of the sex beyond themselves, you know, and like in theory, either they'll whack off or like they'll get in the car and come over and fuck us. Sexting. But when we're actually having sex one-on-one, it's one of the few moments left in life where like people don't stop and take pictures of it. Yeah, which is great. I don't want sex to have. I know.
That's the thing.
Well, I don't want sex to have shame. I mean, my whole purpose of this is like to de-shame it. But like by de-shaming it, it would be really sad if we
like I'm live podcasting.
I know. This is like my sex Instagram account.
We're like get so many followers.
You see? What the fuck?
Thank God. I think that's like the only area we haven't crept in socially. I think there's censorship bans. You'd have to have a whole new platform for that. I'm sure there's like live streaming sex.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. But like there is definitely a voyeuristic tendency in real life now where we would rather watch it than live it unconsciously,
even
right?
with relationships that you feel like you have like a relationship with someone you've been friended or whatever on Instagram, and then you meet them in real life and you feel like you know them. You don't know anything about them.
Oh yeah. And, you feel you know them.
And that's freaked me out too because I've like put my parents' pets on my Instagram, and somebody I met at a bar was like, "Oh, I follow you, I know you," and they dropped my parents' pet's name, and I'm like, "Shit, this is like that whole aspect."
Yeah, me too.
Like,
I run into people who know me exclusively from Instagram.
Yeah, and I mean, it creeps me out, but I also participated in it because I'm posting all this stuff and I'm very active in that. But I mean, it's that false sense of a familiarity.
I've had a couple of romances, the people who reached out to me on Instagram who I didn't know and met, and you know, we had which is okay, so long as it like stays out of the camera, you know. I feel like so long as it stays out of the Instagram place.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm not physically like I'm not really one to do the sexy filter Instagram story like
I'm with so and so.
Yeah. I'm not really
kissy. We just met.
My camera's usually turned the other way or whatever I'm looking at, and I mean, that's a whole. I don't know if it's like a generational thing, but I'm not really on board with doing that on my own accord. I'm not getting DMs for that kind of thing. That's not my bag. I don't know. I feel like we're I don't know, you're selling so much of like your practice and everything else. Like I like to keep at least like family stuff, or even who I'm dating, that's never on there. That's like, I feel like this is your magazine, your business card. Like, I don't know, that I don't feel like the data's owned by so many people that like, I really don't have any desire for someone at a bar to know my parents' pet's name, who my boyfriend is, da 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 da.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So
I
like
support that.
I do post a lot, but it's really, the personal stuff really isn't there. So
yeah,
like,
yeah, me too. I don't post.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't think anyone really knows. I'm extremely private in my sex life, partly because, you know, as a feminist, I just don't like being claimed, and that has, in fact, ruined quite a few relationships, because sooner or later, the partner will want it to be known, you know, and I don't want to be identified as his, whatever, girl, girlfriend, whatever it is. So partly because of that, for political reasons, because woman has always been the chattel, you know, of the man she is sleeping with or has to sleep with, and before that it's the father, and then the father gets replaced by the husband or what other male is closest to her, to whom she belongs. And, you know, until very recently, women, most of the world couldn't own property, couldn't have a bank account, you know, all of that stuff. So it's just so recent to me that I don't like that feeling at all. So that's why I keep it private. It's not out of sense of you know, shame or discretion, because I really wouldn't care less. But in heteronormative relationships, I feel strongly that I don't want to, you know, be seen that way, because that's still how the world interprets it, you know. And I think that makes the relationship or the sex more sacred and more special, because it's in its own world that it, you know, is not vulnerable to gossip and attack and, you know, labels and diminishing, you know, by everybody who is like watching. So it gives it more of a chance.
Yeah,
which is hard, you know, to keep a relationship alive and going today with all the distractions and all, like, you know, all the possibilities of new supply, you know, new like meat, new
fresh
names. Yes,
Miami's pretty.
Yeah.
I don't know,
and it's
pretty
easier.
shameless about that too. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, you go down to happy hour in Brickell, and it is very much next batch.
Well, we
Men
get
are
a
older.
lot of good-looking girls.
Yes.
Which is nice. I mean, I appreciate looking at them, but we got a lot compared to like an average place. Yeah. And we got a lot of narcissists too, you know. So, and kind of like well-off capitalists who are eager to, you know, mingle with the youth. Yeah. So, and that's an interesting, you know, that's another interesting thing. I don't know if we have time, but I'm very interested in the ex-Soviet republics.
Just bounce that in the last minute.
I know.
See how
Just in the last minute.
Go.
But I know. Because you know, I'm interested in it as someone who's very attuned to like spiritual life, which is not the same necessarily as religious or Christian life, but spiritual life, right? And so what communism did, it made it illegal. You know, Marxism, Leninism, and the philosophy made it illegal to believe in God or a God. And then there were like 2 or 3 generations that basically only believed in materialism, right? As socialist materialism, which means materials, which means capital, which means capitalism. So the whole thing became one and the same. You know, so when, you know, Soviet communism broke up and the Soviet Union broke up, and you know, people were able to kind of like share our culture. I think they found themselves, you know, lacking that like spiritual facility and habit. So they embraced like commercialism and, you know, capitalism head on, almost like a religion, almost like a faith. And again, I'm generalizing extremely. So this is not about like an individual, but at the cultural level, it's very instructive to me seeing how they deal with their bodies and each other, and the world. It's very instructive to me as a potential atheist.
A what?
I could be an atheist, but one of the reasons I'm not is precisely that I think we
potential
need.
Atheist.
Yes.
I like that. That's good.
That the spiritual life, a spiritually enriched life, whatever name we give it could be anything, right? Is actually a great counterbalance to, the impoverished, exchange of material energy solely as a way to be sexual or intimate or together with each other.
That's interesting because I was talking with somebody yesterday about how that plays a role in what you are as an artist playing into the capital machine and the hierarchy of where artists lie in, let's say, like even just with your income, and like where changing the conversation of art as not a luxury but a necessity, and a culture indicator of where we are today. And they were talking about Cuba, how artists are the top bracket of the it's kind of like the reverse pyramid of here of where artists are in that scale. And I just found it so interesting of like where you find like the commerce of your work, how does that play into that whole thing? Like obviously we want to make work because we have to make a living, but like where does that play for like the rest of society of like, do I need a piece by you? Like where, how important is that? And it becomes like this measure of materiality of like who's in your collection and like who are you giving your work to? So I just find like that whole trajectory of thought is really interesting, and figuring out where you are not only spiritually but like within your practice. So like you have a soulless practice, you're potential atheist, you're like it's just not
I mean,
like,
I think art is a spiritual practice,
so it's like it's impossible and so it's really difficult because there's the duality of business person versus, I hate to say creative because creative encompasses like other, I would just say artist versus business person, and how that intersects when you're thinking about spirituality. Can you do that? Like, is that possible? Like, how do you have, ethical exchange? And, like, there's been, what was the big thing of the Whitney Museum, the protesting Sackler with the opioids.
The Sackler.
So it's like, all of this, the money comes from somewhere.
Money is like immoral. Money is amoral, which in real life translates into immoral.
But it's difficult because it's a position of privilege to say, I'm not going to show my work in the Whitney because of this person. As an artist, you have to take opportunities to show your work, and you don't necessarily get solicited from everybody. So I really don't know what the right answer is. It's obviously like protest these things, but it's like you trace most money is dirty, and it's like, how are you going to navigate that? If this,
I don't know.
Like right now, art is a great little tax haven for all of these.
And money laundering too. So that helps especially the top sellers.
Well, I'm having sold people.
But I feel like for me, I never think of it in terms of selling it. I think that most artists make art because they have to, and if we could do something else and make money, we would, but we literally can't. Those who can do, and you see how their art becomes commerce quickly, and power to them, but I'm just saying I don't think that often it's a choice.
I see a lot of that here.
I do miss the days of patronage, because in the old world, like in Greece, like in Cuba, the artist and the writer are highly respected. They may not be wealthy, but like the people look up to them.
And that's what I was talking about with the societal.
It's like he's an artist. There is a lot of status, even if there is no wealth. Right here, it neither exists because here wealth brings status. But that's just like the American experiment, because people come from everywhere to make money. It's the reason of America's, like, it's a bank of the world. So we gather up here to like make more money than we would have made in our countries and be a little more free. but I think that, you know, for the artist, the true art has to be divorced from like the consciousness of whether or not it will ever be sold or collected or all that bullshit, you know. And I think that most of the time, if it does get recognized, it's by happenstance. It's like an accident, you know, luck of the draw. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. Like true romance, it's just, you know, the gods smile on you or whatever, wink, and give you the good and the bad, because it always comes together. But again, you know, what we were saying in the beginning, I think that art, like, you know, sex, like other, you know, like spiritual practice, is one of those things that is separated from like making money. And, you know, and if it does, it's just because it does, right? And then it becomes, and then that way it stays real. And, you know, that's why there is like patronage. And then the question is, do you get to pick and choose your patrons?
There's so many.
And yeah, there's so many.
So many suitors.
And yeah, no, you don't. You can't, you know, but you can speak truth and say, oh, I just realized that that's how he made his money and we should at least be aware of it. But beyond that, you know, that's all we can do, is just recognize that, you know, those pills are made by that family. And that's the, you know, that's the extent of it, is knowledge, you know, saying it and sharing it. Yeah. Anyway, well, I think we've extended beyond our time, and we could keep going and going. I don't know if we talked about sex per se, but we talked about all things sexual.
Oh, we can continue.
Well, I don't know what John thinks. So, yeah. I feel that, you know, the body's in the middle of all of this, you know, and ignored, you know, that the body's in the middle of all these exchanges of money and time and likes and importance and happiness, but we don't acknowledge it, you know. We treat it as if it's not us, yeah, right? So, but it's right in the middle of it all, and it's really loaded. And the more aware we're of it, the more healthy we can be and healed. Otherwise, it is the body that will take the refuge, you know, the stress, the pressure of all of this experience of daily life that we've talked about for the past hour. So, like, liberate the body by acknowledging it and giving it a moment and respecting it and embracing it and, you know, like touching it and, you know, nourishing it. Yeah.
Self-care is important, especially like reflective. I mean, I'm alone, sitting in silence, listening to music, just listening to myself. So that's like a huge part of the studio practice. I mean, you're just, I don't know any other profession that you are just like that, like focused in. You've got X amount of time, and you can use that to dedicate whatever your mind capacity can handle. And I think that if you're not in a healthy place, it's a really difficult profession to do because you're not hiding from yourself. And if you're physically, like, I do pretty large scale works, like that takes a toll on the body after a while, and you kind of have to listen to it. And my work kind of responds to how much care am I taking of myself? Am I taking that time? And I think that's so crucial. And the work, like, definitely reflects that. I mean, do you agree?
Absolutely. And I think everybody out there, no matter what work they do, this is useful. It's good practice. It's good advice. Okay, well, we're going to conclude, even though we could go on endlessly, and we'll pick up again next Friday. Thank you for coming, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me as your sex whisperer. And we'll be back next Friday with Speak Sex. Ciao.
Oh, wow.